the look maxing stuff nearly ruined my life. So, guys, this is not a video about bodybuilding. This is not a video about even my own experience. This is ultimately just something that I've observed and noticed that so many people are doing things for the approval, for validation from other people, which to me is just all the wrong reasons. I mean, I've seen people going and leasing a base model Mercedes C300 just to put on an image of being rich or showing off, and not even really, obviously not even being able to afford the car, and potentially putting themselves in financial ruin. I've seen people even taking payments out and paying interest on things like designer shoes, watches, stuff like that, which I find so crazy. But in my case, with my situation, when I was around the age of 21 and I'd gotten into lifting, I'd gotten into the gym, which it was really my only escapism at the time, as I've noticing a lot of men, they have that as their outlet, which again, it's good. It's much better than a lot of other outlets. It's a healthy thing to go to the gym. It's better than getting into substance abuse or any type of vice that's really destructive like that. But when something healthy becomes unhealthy, that's when it's a problem. So in my case, I've been lifting consistently for around 4 or 5 years after the age of 21, so around the time that I was 25. And when you are in the gym long enough, when you, I would just say, get to a certain point, especially in terms of maybe strength or in terms of muscle mass, leanness, whatever it might be, you will eventually have this conversation either with other gym goers or even just with yourself about, oh, well, I wonder if I tried this, if I put this in my body, how much bigger, how much stronger would I be able to get? Now, unfortunately for me at the time, I gave into it. I ended up injecting exogenous hormones. And guys, I'll put it this way. It made a night and day difference. So anyone who's saying, because I've seen some pro athletes talk about this kind of stuff, saying how it is, well, it doesn't make that big of a difference. It's just about recovery and this, and that. Guys, it makes a night and day difference. And again, I'm not trying to glorify these products. I don't think anyone should use it. It's the best thing to do is to stay natural. Again, people seem to underestimate how much can even be achieved naturally, especially when it comes to strength gains. But I see a lot of kind of misunderstanding around this stuff, which again, I think is why a lot of younger and younger people are taking it, because of the ignorance when it comes to the subject. But I gave in and I started injecting myself with exogenous test, and I noticed, guys, a big difference, big changes, and ultimately what it came down to was I was getting a lot of validation and approval from other people. I was getting a lot of praise. I was getting a lot of people asking advice on workouts and all different kinds of stuff. But what I realized was I wasn't doing it for my own self-fulfillment and for my own confidence. Because if I'm just relying on other people's approval and other people's attention and other people's praise or whatever for my own well-being, that's not true peace of mind. That's not real confidence. That's not what a real man would do. So some months went by and I started noticing side effects, the typical ones you guys could think of, anyone who's researching into this topic: moon face, back acne, hair loss, mood stuff. So I decided to cut back and come off the stuff. And I was off for around 3 months, but I started getting that itch again. That itch that I missed, the feeling of being something that I'm not naturally, something that more than I am to my natural self, and the praise and admiration from others, which, guys, I'll be straight up, that's pathetic. You should not have to again, I was younger at the time. I was more naive at the time. And I grew as a person since then, but you should not have to rely on those things for your own well-being. So, unfortunately, I gave into it again, and I hopped on again. And again, guys, this is why you say anyone who's looking to gym culture, which I'm sure I know most of my overwhelming majority of my audience is male audience, and I assume a lot of you guys go to the gym. When you hear people say, excuse me, when you hear people say, don't go to the dark side, this is what they mean, guys, because when you do that first pin and you see the differences, you might get hooked on it. I mean, it's really something that it can become addicting. So I decided to get on another cycle, got even bigger and stronger. But again, each time I got back on and the dose increased a little bit, there was more side effects. Coming off was a lot harder. The crash was a lot worse. So to not turn this into a 2-hour video about my gym journey over that period of time, I was on and off, cycling on and off for around 1.5 years, 2 years. And I had actually gone off recently over the past few months because I came to a realization. I was growing as a person. I was becoming more confident in myself. Again, guys, I've touched on this in previous videos where I was not confident. I didn't have good self-esteem when I was younger growing up. So I really came to a realization, guys, that this is just ridiculous. It's not worth the potential risk for not having kids down the line, for passing away early, which I actually have a friend of mine who was blasting since he was like 19 years old and unfortunately passed away at 30. So, and again, I didn't have plans to want to go into professional bodybuilding. So I just came to the realization that there's really no point of this. It's not worth it. As I got more and more confident as a person, I stopped caring what other people think. And again, I wasn't doing it for my own self-fulfillment because I wasn't having plans to go into professional bodybuilding or anything like that. And what was also a really humbling experience for me, around 2 years ago, I started training jiu-jitsu. And you see a lot of guys that think just because they're big or because they can lift a lot that they're tough. I'll tell you guys something. If someone feels that way, go to a jiu-jitsu school, go to a boxing gym, go to an MMA gym, and it's going to be a very humbling experience, meaning humbling in a good way. You should be humble. But you're going to see that all that extra muscle mass, all that strength doesn't carry over to combat. It doesn't. Especially if you're going against someone who is well-trained, who's technical. When you have lacking mobility and cardio and that kind of stuff, you'll see kind of what is more important when it comes to that kind of stuff. Again, this is why a lot of MMA fighters, a lot of boxers you see, they're not jacked, they're not shredded. Some of them are, but for the most part, they're not. You see some of the greatest guys of all time. They're not built like bodybuilders. So anyway, guys, coming off, I was very lucky to where I could come off and still feel normal, still feel fine, and bounce back to kind of my natural levels to what they were before. Again, I wasn't taking very high doses at all, at least according to bodybuilding standards. I was taking, of course, above the clinical recommended dose for the kind of HRT. But I was very lucky. I was very lucky to where I could come off and feel fine. Again, I'm still dealing with some of the remnants of getting on that kind of stuff. I've dealt with some hair loss, which again, guys, when people talk about the whole hair loss thing with HRT or with hormones, I myself was predisposed to a little bit of temporal recession hair loss when I was around the age of 22. I started losing my hair a little bit. But when I started injecting that stuff, it just started shedding out like crazy. I remember I'd be in the shower and just clumps of hair. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And again, guys, that was another trade-off where I'm like, I'm already pretty big and I would say strong naturally. I don't need to be some 250-pound bodybuilder. I don't see to me, it's not worth a trade-off of being completely bald and having a jacked body. It's or some crazy bodybuilder physique. It's not worth it, guys. Now, I want to speak to you guys too, because I've talked to a lot of friends personally who have considered this kind of stuff, have considered putting this kind of stuff in their body. And guys, I'll put it this way. The best thing that you can do is stay natural. I know it sounds cliche. I know you guys have probably heard it so many times who have had these kind of conversations or are considering this kind of stuff. But please, guys, stay natural. It's going to be the best for your own well-being. It's going to be the best for how you're going to be down the line. And in terms of natural muscle mass, doesn't really atrophy like that, to be honest with you guys. When you come off this stuff, you shrink you shrivel up like a prune. I mean, it's a night and day difference. This might sound like a weird mentality, but when I've looked at training, I've almost looked at it as preparing for battle or something like that, right? And let's say if there was some kind of battle or something going on, and you didn't have the money or the means to get those kind of hormones, what are you going to do? You're going to be screwed. You shouldn't have to have that kind of stuff to be physically capable to defend yourself or your family. That's how I feel about that. Again, which again was a good reason why I got into jiu-jitsu, because it was a physical outlet that took my mind off that kind of stuff, which I know there's people obviously in grappling that take that stuff. But I would say it's not necessary, at least not nearly as necessary as it is for bodybuilding. Now, obviously, for people who want to compete nationally or in an international level, that's a different story. I would just say do it by the safest means possible, have proper supervision, and be aware of the consequences, guys. Be aware of it. But ultimately, guys, again, this is not a video that is about bodybuilding. This is not a video that is about even my story. This is a video that's about self-worth. This is a video that's about confidence. That's about inner peace, because we get so caught up with comparing ourselves to other people. Like, again, myself when I was in the gym at the time, seeing all these guys with jacked physiques and the guys benching 400, 500 pounds, seeing that, realizing that, which, number one, those guys were not natural. Number two, I shouldn't be comparing myself to them. I should be comparing myself to the person I was the day or the week or the month or the year prior. Whether I built however much more muscle mass or lost however much more body fat, or even if I've only put on a few pounds on a lift. That's what's most important. Not comparing yourself to other people and wanting to live for some image that other people create, or some weird kind of, again, unrealistic standard, because it's not natural, that you see on social media or something like that. And again, guys, it's a blessing and a curse, because with social media, yes, you have more information about that kind of stuff. It's not as taboo. People are open to talk about it. But I see people younger and younger and younger and younger wanting to hop on that kind of stuff. When I was at my university gym, I actually overheard a conversation between, I think, two 18-year-olds. A few of them, they were deadlifting, and they were talking about hopping on this and taking this amount of stuff a week. And I'm like, dude, these are 18-year-old kids who have not even really, their bodies haven't even developed, and they're talking about taking this kind of stuff. Again, I've heard multiple kind of conversations at the gym and stuff like that of guys who haven't really even put much work or time into the gym that are talking about hopping onto this kind of stuff, because people want a quick fix, guys. Again, something I see missing a lot is this concept of delayed gratification. It sounds cliche, but it's true, guys. Rome was not built in a day. These kind of things don't just happen overnight. It takes months, even years of work to build your body physically, to get strong. And that could be with anything. That could be with any form of self-improvement. It's gonna take time. Finding certain styles of clothing that fit you, finding good people that are worth having in your circle, guys. This kind of stuff takes time. And it becomes so detrimental when people want that instant gratification, like I did at the time. Wanting that kind of quick fix and admiration from other people. And people ask me, what kind of protein powders are you using? What kind of workouts? Oh, could we train together? All that kind of stuff. It's really destructive. And again, us as men also need to do a better job at lifting each other up. I've heard people talk about this survival of the fittest mentality. Get out of here with that nonsense. I'm sorry, guys, but that, to me, if you think that this is just survival of the fittest and you're going to just knock other men and put them down, that is pathetic. If that's the strategy that needs to be used for you to feel better about yourself, then you really have nothing to bring to the table. If someone really believed this kind of survival of the fittest stuff, they wouldn't need to degrade or talk down or put down other men to feel better about themselves. They'd be able to be like, look, these are the cards I bring to the table. That's all I need to say. Those results speak for themselves, Again, that's pathetic. It's like you're intimidated by other men. And again, I see that a lot too, which I think is why people fall into this kind of stuff of dropping all this money on a car they can't afford, on a watch they can't afford, people wanting to have the latest piece of technology in their pocket, taking loans out that are 2-3 years to pay off for some kind of fake image to impress people who are complete strangers, who do not play any role into your life. And again, guys, that's the thing I had to grow up and realize, because I was caring so much about what other people think. What I came to realize is that I thought I was caring so much about other people, but no, I was really just caring about what they think of me. That's ultimately what I cared about. And I came and realized that the only people that I should ultimately care what they think, if I'm going to at all, is close family, people that are really directly involved in my life that have my best interest, because they'll tell you when you're making mistakes. They'll tell you like, hey bro, you're messing up on this, dude. You shouldn't be doing this. That's what a real friend and good family member, excuse me, will do. But I just see it way too much where people just fall into the wrong kind of vices, the wrong kind of habits, and the wrong kind of motivations to want to improve themselves. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.